Gamers, it is time. It's that time again where I read the patch notes so you don't have to. Wow. And you know what? I even tell you what they mean as well, so you don't even have to think. See, that's some value right there. But anyway, let's, in fact, accidentally open Twitter. Whoops. Let's not do that. Let's, in fact, look at what's going on here. And, you know what? We actually got some really fun stuff. So obviously we've got the challenge mode. Definitely fun. Give it a try. Not super difficult. You can get in there and blast that out there. Go check that out. But some really, really cool stuff actually happened. And I do want to highlight this because we are getting dangerously close to some amazing quality of life. That's right. That's right, gamers. We now actually have keybind profiles in the game. So what does that mean? Well, it means you can get your keybinds set up like this, and I can mute musical instruments so people don't play in the background, and you can export it to a little template. I've already got this one called meme here, for example, which is my default keybinds, right? And you can do that as many times as you want for unlimited keybinds templates. It will just be stored locally on your computer. So, of course, you will have to potentially transfer them to another machine if you play on a different machine for whatever reason. But this means that let's imagine you have a different keybind setup on a different profession. You're playing 2 or 3 professions and you have different keybinds, each of them, because it's just more convenient and it just, it's more comfortable. You just prefer that keybind setup. Great. You can now do that. Okay? That is really, really nice, actually. Now, of course, this is not quite there yet, in my opinion. Now, I think ArenaNet need to go the extra step. Now, they need to give you the option to bind this to either an elite spec, to a profession, or potentially even a character. So you could have character-specific keybinds. It will be, there's so much they could do here. If we could have graphics profile settings, so for example, we can change graphics when we go from, say, PVE to world versus world. Oh my god. That will be one of the best quality of life features they could possibly add to the game. Because obviously, the performance that you get from certain settings like character model limit, character model quality, shadows, reflections, all that kind of stuff is very variable depending on each game mode. So being able to have that automatically change will be absolutely massive. Having your keybinds automatically change will be absolutely massive. It will be fantastic stuff. Yeah, any kind of more quality of life when it comes to in-game settings and configuring that is going to be amazing. This is one of the things that definitely trips players up and can actually impact your game experience a lot. I talk about this a lot, but the in-game settings in Guild Wars 2 weirdly actually affect your gameplay a lot. In other MMOs, it's not that true. It is true a little bit, but in Guild Wars 2, you can drastically change your performance, but also your gameplay just through the settings. So I love this. This is a big step in the right direction. Just completely unannounced. They just dropped this out of nowhere, by the way. Really cool setting, and I really hope they continue to actually develop on this. Really, really cool. And it's not in the gem store. Nice. We have Primordius Legendary Weapons. That's pretty cool, I guess. Not too bad. Right, you love to see that. Oh, and this is kind of a fun one too. So profession icons in player portraits now display a tooltip to identify the player's profession or elite specialization. This is actually pretty cool, I guess. I guess that works in squads, right? So you can like mouse over someone in the squad and see what they actually do and see what they are. That's really helpful when you're building your squad. Or maybe you're just kind of, oh, what's this guy playing? I don't know what he's playing. Let me go check it out. Pretty cool stuff there as well. This one is nice for me. I know this is going to be seen as a bit of a cardinal sin in MMOs, but I actually love character randomizers in MMO character creation. I just like spamming, right? I like to, keep spamming away like crazy and just just keep going until I see one that I think looks pretty cool, and then boom, away we go. I guess we could quickly test that character thing. Actually, I'm going to make a squad, guys. Someone join this squad, and I should be able to see what elite specialization you are, even if you aren't in the same map as me, which is pretty cool, actually. Ah, here it is. Oh, I see. It's only when they're... Oh, well, that's not actually that useful, then. You have to actually mouse over their little icon here on the profession window. Well, I mean, that isn't that good. Okay, I mean, that's a little bit not that good, then, in that case. But that's fine. That's fine. I mean, whatever. I mean, it's a thing, I guess. It is a thing. It's a thing. But anyway... let's get down to business and take a look at the actual balance stuff that happened, though. So first up is Elementalist. We can talk about that right now. And you know what? Let's get into it right now. Elementalist mains, rejoice. Because yes, we can look at all of these icons here. You guys have been buffed pretty damn hard, actually, unless you play PvP, in which case you've been nerfed because you were overpowered there. So, haha. However, in PvE, ooh, bit of a beast, actually. I've been hearing reports of Catalyst doing 45k DPS. That's pretty insane. Power Weaver, I believe, is up to 39,000 DPS. Condi, of course, will also be kind of blasting as well during all of that, because Condi will just be around doing its thing, as there are a few changes that now make it do a little bit more damage. Elements of Rage, damage is up, which is a 5% extra damage mod on Weaver there. You love to see that. Same thing on Swift Revenge. Now it's another 5% damage modifier as well. So just like, yeah, flat out 10% free DPS, modifiers right off the bat. More burning duration on Sword. That's only in PvP though, so I guess not. I was getting overhyped. But anyway, yeah, loads of damage on Catalyst. So now you have 0.1 damage. This looks like a nerf, by the way, because they actually initially said they were going to make this 0.25 on Catalyst. That would have been ridiculous. If they'd left that in the game, Catalyst would have been over 50,000 DPS, which would be pretty broken, to be honest. So they didn't do that. They put it on 0.1 as well. But don't be fooled by that that nerf, as it were. It's still a lot of damage. It's still a big pump. And I actually want to give a bit of a shout out here to Spectacular Sphere. It no longer gives you negative 10%, and you can apply quickness, and you get Aegis on Earth, which, by the way, is pretty damn cool. Because if we actually take a look at this trait here, it's a 5-second Aegis on a very short cooldown, actually. Bear in mind, you can use your Earth Sphere very, very frequently on Catalyst. You kind of use these a lot for damage on the Boon build, right, on the Quickness build. So if we actually look at the Boon axis here, we have Might here, we have Resolution and Vigor uptime, we have Quickness and Fury, and then finally we have Protection and Aegis. I mean, yeah, like this Catalyst build I actually think is rather attractive. It's going to have solid damage output on this Quickness build, and we'll have a lot of very frequent Aegis application. It's not exactly controllable because you're going to want to use these spheres to do good damage, of course, but having that Aegis all the time and just up fairly frequently is actually really, really nice. I did really like the Resistance. I think the Resistance was actually really, really cool and was a fun thing to have. It's kind of a special boon, right? If that makes any sense, right? Whereas Aegis is, I guess that is a special boon too, but Resistance is fun, right? Immunity to Condis, or movement Condis, that was pretty high, but Aegis is also really fun for sure. And I think makes the build pretty attractive. I think that this build is probably going to be a lot of fun to play and actually powerful to play too. So Ellie, super happy. And a few little bonus changes here to heal Tempest. So they nerfed Scepter. Basically, the Scepter is much more of a single target damage build. Great in PvP, for example. Good for kind of solo-oriented builds. Like, I think Celestial Tempest with Scepter is going to be great. Just because you have so much sustain now. From the way Water Trident works, you just go boom, big sustain there. More area of effect damage on Lightning Strike and Blinding Flash. Shadowstone is just better auto attack DPS. A slight buff, or a slight, a slight change on the way that Dragon's Tooth and Phoenix work, so they're easier to land, more consistent to land, so you can basically get more value out of that, particularly on moving targets. So they compensate for that by a little hidden change, secret change, only in these notes, Cone of Cold double healing now for Healing Tempest. This has changed it from a pretty ability to honestly not bad at all. That's an 8-second cooldown heal that scales really nicely, 1.2. with healing power. That's probably going to heal for around 5,000, right? Maybe a little bit more than that, depending on how many healing modifiers you have when you're playing like a healing build. Pretty damn good, actually. It's still a bit unwieldy to use. The cone is quite narrow, and obviously the range isn't great, so you could look at the range maybe if you wanted to further buff this. This is definitely a problem that Ellie has, especially in PvE. A lot of Ellie weapon skills are a bit like, oh, they kind of forgot that we're not in the core game anymore, and could definitely use a little bit of an update, I think. That was kind of what they did with Scepter here, right? Bit of a rejuice, bit of an update to make them a bit more compelling. Definitely excited to see how Fresh Air Ellie works in PvP, by the way, because the healing on Water Trident is actually pretty damn significant, actually, in addition to doing some decent DPS. So I could certainly imagine this being somewhat useful, actually, and somewhat usable in PvP scenarios because it has more cleave damage, a lot more cleave damage, has a lot of chill uptime, and more usability on Shadowstone. Could be a really exciting build, I think. And this Dragon Suit, this is going to be kind of annoying, right? It's almost going to force a dodge out of players in PvP because getting hit by that is really going to hurt as well. And we already knew about this, but the Catalyst Hammer 3, that basically just got made consistent. Now it's just like pulsing AoE instead, right? It's a pulsing AoE, it does damage. ArenaNet gave up trying to make the orbs work, probably for the best, if you ask me. But yeah, I mean, if you main Ellie, you're happy. Heal Tempest is good. Quickness Catalyst, I think, is going to be pretty damn solid. DPS Catalyst is great, and it will see play at high level now. You are going to see this on Harvest Temple Challenge mode and the hardest content in the game. It will see play there 100%. Weaver is a lot better as well. Power Weaver is significantly better. I mean, if you're an Ellie main, I mean, yeah, like this is your patch, right? Like you're now a big blaster. Yeah, that's it. You're a big blaster. And yeah, sure. We don't talk about Bladesworn here. I mean, Bladesworn is still amazing, of course, but Catalyst is up there, right? Yeah, we now have 46k benchmark being posted here in the chat, right? Yeah, that's a lot of damage, right? You know, that's pretty good. Yeah. Okay. So let's go ahead and move on to Engineer. And the big one here is actually going to be Hollowsmith. So, basically, the big gimmick here is that a hell of a lot of Hollowsmith abilities, specifically, you know, the toolbox skills from Exceeds and some of the Exceed abilities themselves, now have a bonus. I'll just go and relog, actually, to take a look at it. We'll have a special interaction with the heat trait when you have over 150 heat. Where's my NG? Let's get in here. And it turns out this has worked out pretty well. Hollowsmith is now around 38,000 to 39,000 DPS with a very strong burst. I believe some of the burst is actually over 40k, around 45,000 burst damage, I believe, which is, you know, perfectly respectable for a power build. It's a, you know, and that kind of makes sense when you think about Catalyst, right? Hollow is tankier. I think it's got some pretty solid utility you can bring to the table. A lot of area of effect damage, right? Some support it can activate too on Hollow. So again, Hollowsmith is now pretty damn good. Bear in mind you can play Shield on Hollowsmith very easily. This is for the sword build, right? You're going to play sword a lot of the time. Oh wait, what happened? Where's my Hollow build? Did I destroy my Hollow build? Oops! Fortunately, pretty easy to get it again. Yeah, it's back now. But anyway, Hollowsmith does a lot more damage now. And your abilities do even more. You can see here that over 100% heat, you gain an extra 10% damage on your laser disc. You get an extra 50% damage on blade burst. This is going to be amazing because this is a really interesting ability. If you go inside the hitbox and there are loads of enemies around, all of the blades will hit the same target. So that is going to be pretty monstrous, actually, in terms of the damage output that you can bring to the table with that. So a lot of DPS there. And you, of course, have more damage on your elite skill here as well. You can see here that the burning duration above 100% heat is up by 50%. The pulsing field is up by 20% here on Prime Light Beam. So yeah, what's not to love? Hollow mains, you're a happy chappy here. It's going to be a super robust build. The sword shield build is going to be very durable with the block, has great crowd control, loads of area of effect damage, great sustainability because you're a medium armor class and you have big boomer and you have barrier with crystal configuration eclipse. Yeah. And this is really, really nice for Hollows. You're, you know, happy days. Happy days indeed. And, of course, if you do fancy playing kind of like a more defensive build, right? You know, you could have a bit more support, for example. You could go for Hard Light Arena to give boons to your allies. Spectrum Shield. You can actually get a very long duration, heavy damage reduction ability with this. There's a lot of stuff you can actually bring to the table here that can be very, very high in utility. And honestly, in PvP, this is going to be fun. We already saw Hollowsmith kind of coming into PvP a little bit with Floodie's build that he was playing, which, by the way, has now been buffed because that build uses Toolkit and, of course, makes use of the Toolkit abilities. Now, Box of Nails can now be used to immobilize targets. If a target has already got a snare on them, say a cripple or chill or something like that, then you can also just go ahead and boom. You can now Box of Nails them. That will immobilize them immediately after that with 2 charges. So you can use it to very easily line up a chain of CC to lock down a target and blow them up very quickly. So yeah, Another buff for Holo, and again, that build was already creeping back in PvP a little bit, the Static Discharge Holo build, so that's going to be even better now. Because again, it uses that overheat trait as well, like the Mega trait, where you have more heat, so all of your abilities are better. If you have any of the exceeds, sword is going to be better as well. You're going to do even more damage, and it's a sword shield build as well. So yeah, very, very cool changes to Holosmith there. And I like that. I like that they're really leaning into the heat mechanic to make it super interactive. I think that's what people like about Holosmith anyway. Makes it really fun to play. So now it's going to be more fun to play and really dynamic in PvE and PvP. Yeah, I mean, yeah, you love to see it. I mean, the amount of Comni Cleanse you're going to get on this build is going to be insane. Because I believe Floody was playing with this, with the Coolant Blast. So one, you get more healing, more Cooling Vapor and Frost Aura when you're over 100% heat, as we can see here. And on the Tool Belt skill, you get 6 conditions removed. Wait, no, 9 conditions get removed when you're over heat threshold, over 100% heat. That is actually crazy. That's a lot of condition removal. Okay, maybe it's balanced differently in PvP. Actually, that actually seems a little bit crazy. But still, you know, it's probably a little bit different there. But yes, Holosmith is back, and I guess we'll talk about the mech changes as well. So mech, the big thing with mech is that the rifle animation has changed. Basically, it's not as fast anymore. Doesn't look as weird. Spoiler alert, guys. Doesn't actually matter. The DPS is the same. Power mech is fine. I did a Harvest Temple challenge mode earlier today. We had double heal mech and a power mech in there. It was perfectly fine on damage. Wasn't a problem. And the heal mechs were fine too, right? It was not an issue. Boons were fine. Healing was fine. Everything was fine. Barrier uptime was fine. All this does is you have to slightly manage your mech a bit better. So the gimmick here is that if you're out of range of your mech, more than 360 radius away for a certain amount of time, then you lose stats. Now, the implementation on this is actually a little bit weird, and I'll quickly demonstrate it here to explain why. So if we go over to this mech build here, you'll notice here, this is the buff, right? Mechanical Genius. Your mech is currently getting the full effect of Mechanical Genius. So now if we just move away, right, a little bit here, and I'm going to try and get the mech to stay real quick. Come on, you. Let me out of range. Oh. Yeah, it's a little bit difficult to do this, but if I just run away, pretty much. We need to rocket boot away. Hang on. Rocket boot, go! So if we just start running away like this, you'll notice that we lose this buff, and the mech is going to lose stats. You can see here that the mech no longer has the extra stats, and we're just running away here, because we managed to get some separation. And when it comes back, then it will take a while, then we'll get the buff back. Now, the implementation is a little bit weird here. So, the way it works is that it basically checks every 3 seconds if the mech is nearby. If the mech is nearby, it refreshes the buff. Otherwise, the buff just times out. Now, this implementation is a little bit questionable, to be honest, because it means that if you move away from your mech, kind of right before a 3-second tick is going to happen, you're not going to get the full 6-second duration. Right? You're only going to get 3 seconds or 4 seconds. So the implementation here is a little bit weird. Probably a tech limitation by ArenaNet here. And the radius is very small as well. Like, really small. Okay? It's 360. I think that could probably be bumped up to 600, to be honest. At least in PvE. And I think ultimately, it is a bit of an annoying thing to play around. I understand why this is been here, but I think this is more of like a bit of a band-aid fix until mech actually gets reworked a bit. The main issue with mech is that it's just so passive, right? The power mech builder I actually don't care about. That's not really that relevant. It's not even that good, to be honest, anymore. It's probably a little overtuned, but, you know, I mean, not compared to some of the other stuff in the game. The main issue is the support build in particular. And it's just a bit too passive. Some of the abilities are just a bit too overloaded. It does maybe a little bit too much, has a little bit too much. So once they get stripped down a little bit, I think they could probably slightly revert this or just remove this, basically. It's just, they wanted to do this now because people are really crying out for mech nerfs, and ArenaNet want to shift the metagame a little bit and nudge people to play other builds, so I understand why. But yeah, the AI being not super smart, combined with the kind of slightly weird implementation of how this works, I mean, it's all right. You know, once you get used to it, it's not going to be that bad, especially on the DPS build. It's not really an issue at all. All you have to do is just make your mech return to you sometimes on the DPS build, and that will just be fine. It's not a big deal, in my opinion. But yeah, that's the thing with mech. With Scrapper got some buffs in PvP. Probably, I'm not sure it's going to help that much, I guess, because Scrapper's a bit in PvP. Honestly, I think they actually could have done this in PvE too, by the way, because Herald got buffed. We'll get to that later. Herald is juiced as hell. But Herald got really, really buffed, and that, of course, is in direct competition with Scrapper. And as a result of that, I think Scrapper could actually take a few buffs as well. I mean, Scrapper's still good, right? Perma Super Speed is nice. It has Protection application, Fury application. Bit of might thrown there too, alongside the quickness. It's not a bad build at all. It has function gyro, but I think they probably could have nudged it a bit to keep up with Herald in PvE too. But that's fine. The healing turret bug got fixed. Happy days. We love to see it. We absolutely do. But yeah, overall, really cool stuff for Holosmith there. I think that's going to be a really fun build to play in all game modes actually, and some really nice buffs. Getting up to that 38k, 39k DPS is really going to make that one juicy. And let's go. I actually want to quickly show something, guys. I forgot to say this, but I was reminded by the animation rework. The animation rework has reminded me. Gamers. Happy days. Happy days. They made the animation on Scepter for Ellie of the fire auto attack not ridiculous, where you would just hold your arm up to the sky every time and look up. It was one of my least favorite animations in the entire game. And now you do have this very aggressive flailing, but I actually think it's so ridiculous, it's funny, and I like it, right? But yeah, this animation's a million times better, okay? Don't at me, it's way better. It is completely unhinged, but honestly, if you play Ellie, you probably are completely unhinged, so that's fine. I actually like it. Huge buff there to that. And actually, let's go ahead and continue. You know, we're doing Necro next, guys. We're doing Necro next because you know what? You can't stop me. Okay? You can't stop me. I'm doing it anyway. Gamers. Gamers, 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 gamers. Reaper buffs. Stealth Reaper buffs. ArenaNet weren't in the office on Friday to drop these extra notes. But here they are, here on Tuesday, my friends. It's gaming content. Reaper is juiced. And I think it could use a little bit more, in my personal opinion. I think, I don't think this is the end for Reaper. It probably could get juiced up a little bit more. But good news. Power Reaper gets a lot more life force generation, which is actually a problem that it had. It struggled to have life force a lot of the time to actually use its shroud abilities. This also, by the way, indirectly makes it way more survivable, by the way, because now you have more life force, so you can generate more shroud and therefore use it to tank more effectively without kind of getting punished. So way more life force generation on the auto attacks here. On the shroud regeneration rate is now slower, or degeneration rate is slower in PvE. You now have more life force on your heal skill, your Solar's Mine heal skill. You have more life force on Death Spiral, the third skill, on Greatsword, on Grasping Darkness. This is massive. You will get over 50% life force if you hit 5 targets with your Greatsword pull. That's insane. And again, Fading Twilight also an extra 1% life force. This is really useful, actually, for Reaper. And all the numbers are still coming in the game as well. So you have cooldown reduction, you have more Chilling Novas for chill up time. That's also really good for Condi Reaper, by the way. That's kind of fun. Execution aside, this ability is a pumper. I've been told it crits for 60,000 damage, which is a really big nuke, really making Reaper into this kind of executioner style class where when things start to get low, below 50%, below 25%, then boom, you start absolutely pumping. Crit chance got fixed as well, by the way, because Death Perception, now you get an extra 5% critical strike chance in PvE and World vs. World, alongside the Soul Barbs having extra duration, so you're going to have that 10% damage modifier up more often now because of that. Long story short, this build is now 35k. Okay. 35k DPS, which is actually pretty respectable. I think it could definitely get nudged up a little bit more towards the 36, 37. Just behind Holosmith, I think would be perfectly fair. I think maybe even around the same as Holo if we really want to, be nice to the Reaper players, right? All that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, Reaper is officially big. Also, I logged onto the wrong character. I should go on this guy instead. This has got the Reaper build. The Reaper build is here. Yeah, it's very solid, very robust, and yeah, some really nice last-minute tweaks to really help Reaper out. And this is now a build that you're going to feel a lot happier on, in my opinion. I mean, it was okay before the patch, right? But now it's definitely, it's gone from to not so bad, huh? You know, we're going in the right direction here with Reaper. And watch out for Condi Reaper too, because of course, a chilling Nova every 3 seconds is basically bleeds every 3 seconds, right? Because of the way chill works, right? We're interacting with that trait. But either way, you're kind of pumping right now. I have Eagle runes on, but you can do Scholar runes. You have to, like, maybe throw a bit of precision on, right? Scholar runes with an amulet, right? An assassin amulet to get the remainder of your precision to get all the way up to 100%. So, who knows? Maybe they'll give us an extra 5% crit chance again on Death Session. Maybe they'll give Reaper better Fury or something like that, okay? You have a higher chance to critically strike against chilled enemies. Haha, right? See? Yeah. See, we can maybe make that happen. But regardless, it's a nice start. Take Reaper Reds and not get laughed at. What? I mean, that was last patch too. In fact, that was since release. I've always got to push back on this narrative, right? You would never get laughed at for playing Reaper unless you aren't good. Simple as that. Or the people who are laughing at you also don't understand the game and they're also trash. That's possible. Another really cool change. They made the elite skill variety a little bit spicier. You now get Fury and Might from Chilled to the Bone. I'm not sure if this is actually going to be super relevant because Flesh Golem is actually a really good skill. Has very powerful break bar damage for Reaper. And of course, Lich Form is great for burst damage. You can summon the minions, they all explode for a lot of DPS. So I'm not really sure if you take this. I mean, it's kind of a thing for, you know, maybe PvP or World vs. World, making it a bit more interesting there potentially. But Lich Form is good in World vs. World. And in PvP, of course, Lich Form was good too. But, you know, it's kind of nice to see these abilities touched up a little bit. Little bit of a fresh lick of paint. You know how it is. Not too bad, not too bad. In that regard, does a lot of damage too, I guess, but still, you know, it's not horrible. I forgot to mention this about Reaper, but I'm gonna remember it now. The auto attack on, this is fun, by the way. The auto attack on Reaper, guys, if you finish the chain, so you do one, okay, let's go and maybe find something to attack. The auto attack on Reaper now resets Gravedigger cooldown. So in other words, if we do this, right? And oh, that's gonna die, isn't it? And then boom, look at that! It's instantly back. So in other words, your rotation ends up being super dynamic now, right? Because you're gonna do an auto, you're gonna do an auto attack chain, and then you're gonna Gravedigger, right? Auto attack chain, then Gravedigger. Right? So a really dynamic rotation here, right? You're really gonna be blasting a lot of damage with this, right? And then boom, Gravedigger comes back, then you can do another. How could you? Okay, it evaded. That's cheating. Right, and then boom! You get that. Obviously with quickness, which you're going to have, you can do that really frequently and really get some big DPS there, actually. A lot of fun, guys. But yeah, of course, does really put a heavy emphasis on you need to finish your auto attacks here, which is also going to be important for your life force gain. But now you're going to be very heavily encouraged to do this, as not only is it going to give you loads of life force, and it completely recharges your Gravedigger at the same time. So that's the other kind of little bonus change. Okay, that's what I'm just making the editing here really hard for Journet, right? We've got to slide that in there. Okay, a little cheeky edit there talking about Gravedigger. Really cool change. It's not my change. Okay, I would have the Omega execute every Gravedigger you land 1% more damage, but I'll take it. Okay, I'll take it. But yeah, Reaper. Cool stuff. Very cool stuff. Well, I wonder if they actually finally fixed this bug. I wonder if that happened. Wow. Yeah, maybe. Maybe finally you can't double use. This was in instance beta, by the way. You could, if you're on like a piece of terrain that's a little bit weird, you can kind of double leap on Voracious Arc. That's the kind of leap acrobatic ability on Harbinger. I like that. That's good. We like to see it. We absolutely do love to see that. It's fantastic stuff. Easy peasy. And there's also some pretty interesting changes for Necromancer. Necromancer actually really fell off in PvP recently, and that's attempted to be addressed here with Corrupt Boon and some of these other abilities here. Essentially, Spectral Armor is now really strong because this ability, here's the thing about this skill, guys. It's not just about the fact that it gives you protection, and it's a stun break. It's also the fact that it actually kind of refills your life force a lot of the time. Because every time you get hit with Spectral Armor up, including while you're in Shroud, and that's a really important thing, by the way, say if you're on a Reaper or a Core Necromancer or even a Harbinger, you regain you regain Shroud while you're in Shroud, right? Which makes you potentially very tanky. Being able to use this every 30 seconds is a big deal in PvP, and I expect to see a lot of Spectral Armor. It was already seeing play in PvP, but now it's going to be amazing in PvP. And helping Necromancer have a bit more sustain is really going to help it in the meta. It's been bullied out a little bit by really bruisery classes that just shove it around too much. So introducing stuff like this, Signet of the Locust is also a good sustain skill. You get more healing when you hit multiple targets and remove boons. It's already good in World Blitz, so that's going to help it out there as well. And of course, anything that helps Necros survive, because Necro is a weird class, right? A lot of survivability in Guild Wars 2 is because of movement, right? And positioning. And positioning is really important on Necromancer, but Necromancer also doesn't really have extra evasion or blocks, right? It has to actually absorb damage using its Shroud. So giving it a little bit more sustain is certainly going to help it out in Necromancer. And Signet of Spite, in PvP rather. And Signet of Spite, this is going to be content, guys. Okay, you can just blast people with a million colonies and blow them up. Funnily enough, you actually see this played on power builds, actually. You kind of debilitate your opponent and lock them down with the Signet, applying vulnerability, cripple, blind, weakness, and then you nuke them with a lot of power damage. That's how it typically sees play. I think that build kind of fell out of favor a little bit, but it was kind of, I think it was a core Necro build in particular. But anyway, that's the deal with Necromancer. Exciting times. Ranger, I mean, this is a thing too. I mean, not a lot really changed with Ranger. They really looked at Hammer on Untamed, actually, and basically gave Hammer a lot more sustain is the big deal here. And again, I think that ArenaNet want to push Untamed in a duelist direction in PvP, and kind of that, you know, that slightly bruisery 1v1er goes into a team fight. Right now, Untamed is more like a roamer that runs around one-shotting stuff, which is maybe not really the design you want. That's maybe more where Soul Beast wants to be, and Untamed just tends to be quite uninteractive with the way it plays out as well. So moving in this direction is probably a bit healthier for the game. It would be really fun to play like an open world build too with this. You're going to be so tanky because you're going to have so much barrier. You're going to have really short cooldowns on these hammer abilities like Mega CC, which is pretty cool. Restorative Strikes gives you protection as well now. That's pretty good actually, because this ability was one of the most boring abilities in the entire game. And Untamed now even has more DPS. My tooltip is very confused because the API doesn't really know how balance splitting works. But you know what? Look at that, guys. Now you get 2 stacks of poison whenever you actually land a disable. That's going to be a sizable DPS increase, actually. That's a lot. That's going to be a lot of poison applications when you're spamming CC like crazy. That actually makes the Selly build kind of cool as well. But yeah. There you go. Yeah, Power Untamed 40k. Yeah, 40k DPS Power Untamed. That's pretty damn juicy. That is very juicy as well, especially since you are playing Hammer on that build too. That is tasty, actually. Yeah, and of course, now because of the one thing that ArenaNet did a lot this patch was they kind of said, you know what? Defiance bar enemies can't really be crowd controlled. Let's make all the traits that normally work on crowd control work on Defiance bars too. So you get bonus damage and bonus conditions, bonus effects on a lot of Untamed abilities. I think Untamed is actually pretty attractive now in PvE actually. Certainly for kind of open world content. Certainly on power builds for sure. I think the hybrid build is actually pretty cool too, where you give Alacrity and do some DPS with condition damage. That's going to be fun. Same on power. And Untamed really is... Look. Okay, gamers. I need you all to promise me do not leak this. Okay, do not leak this. Okay? I'm going to tell you a little secret. Fervent Force is going to get a little bit noodled eventually. ArenaNet basically said it's kind of a broken trait. They're going to remove it. But enjoy it while you can. Do not leak this. Okay? Untamed has a really special gimmick, and that means that every time you use a crowd control ability, all of your other skills have their cooldowns reduced by 4 seconds. Now, you might go, oh, wow, I can blast DPS. But actually, there's another thing here that you kind of want to talk about. It means basically every ranger skill in the game can have no cooldown. Okay? So yeah, that means you can use the revive on Nature's Renewal ridiculously fast. You can just keep spamming this because you keep reducing the cooldown by using Call of the Wild and Path of Scars and Exploding Spores and Storm Spirit, right? It means you can use Search and Rescue incredibly frequently and almost be like a semi-scourge while you're also applying boons, right? It means that you can spam Call of the Wild insanely hard, and it means you can actually give a lot of might, fury, swiftness, and regeneration to your allies. It means that you can use Healing Spring a lot if you want to, and you can heal your allies a lot. It means you can use Water Spirit a lot and use that with Storm Spirit to give permanent alacrity uptime, alongside a little bit of fury from Storm Spirit at the same time, right? And this is actually pretty interesting. Like, Untamed is one of those builds that people don't play, but they should, because it's surprisingly good if you know how to get value out of it. I learned this when I was doing the solo. When I first came across this build, me and Nate kind of threw it together for the Hardstuck website. I started playing. I was like, dude, this build is so good. It's so fun. You just press all your buttons. You're going crazy. You can use all your abilities all the time. This is epic, right? It's a bit of a monster, to be honest. Bear in mind, you're playing Ranger, so we have a CC pet, right? And that means we can also go ahead and swap to our Gazelle immediately, and we have Omega CC, ridiculous Defiance bar on demand. And this build actually not only self-buffs itself, but also does a lot of damage. You could play this as an alacrity position in a raid or a strike mission or something like that, and you'll do a decent amount of damage, very comparable to other alac builds, and you'll also be able to bring amazing utility, incredible Defiance bar, and you're unkillable as well. You can't die because you can spam your abilities constantly, including your heal skill, or if you take this ability here, 50% damage reduction, which gives you infinite stability literally forever. That's kind of fun. And even better, okay, even better than that, guys, okay, you give loads of boons. Well, I guess maybe that's about the same. But yeah, you give loads of boons. It's great. It's a good time. And you ignore your group because you give yourself quickness anyway. So if your quickness rider sucks, doesn't matter. You already have quickness. This is honestly one of those builds you can get in there, in open world, in pug groups, and you're like, you know what? I don't care. I don't care about any of you. I'm going to hard carry you with my Nature Spirit and my Search and Rescue. I'm going to blast. I'm going to give alacrity. I'm going to give might at the same time, right? Boom. And you know what the best part is, guys? It works in Celestial gear. You can play a more aggressive build with Viper gear, but you go with full Celly, 2.7k toughness. We go into Pet Unleash mode. That's 25% damage reduction as well on us. You got protection all the time? It's too much. Enjoy it while you can, because I'm pretty sure they are going to nerf this. But yeah. Enjoy it while you can. But yeah, Untamed, you're pumping. Power Untamed, Hybrid Untamed, Beast Mode. I mean, look, this is going to be a bit of a running theme, guys, but CMC's activated. He's said, wibbly wobbly, your builds are now viably. Okay, that doesn't make any sense, but that's what he's doing, okay? He just said, you know what? All these builds, I'm juicing them. I'm making them all good. I will actually say, just a quick caveat, they were viable before. He's just juiced them even further, right? CMC's unchained. He's out of control, right? He's buffed everything. Everything's out of control now. Oh, yeah. Let's not even talk about Herald, guys. This build is beast mode now. This build is full unhinged. For some reason, ArenaNet were like, you know what? What if Herald did even more damage? And now, by the way, DPS Herald is actually pretty damn good, right? If you want to play a full damage build, so you don't give quickness, for example, you can actually, I think you're close to 40k. Again, it's like a 38k build, I think, or something like that. It's very strong. And of course, you could take Jalos on that build as well for a small DPS loss and be even more unkillable. But the real star of the show here is going to be Quickness Herald and Vindicator. These builds are absolutely insane. Power Vindicator, awesome build, gives stability, does loads of damage, dodges all the time, has good CC as well. Amazing build. And because you have Jalos, you have damage reduction, and you have stability too. So you're unkillable, which is nice. Impossible Odds, more damage. Jade Winds, more damage. Sword, more damage. Rising Tide, more consistent. Elemental Blast, cooldown reduction. So Facet cooldown reduction. So better quickness uptime, easier quickness uptime, less annoying rotation. They fixed the F2 on core values. So basically now the increased boon duration works correctly when you activate this ability, which is, I mean, that's nice. That's pretty nice. So yeah, Boon Herald is absolutely amazing right now. Condi Boon Herald is better too, actually, if you're into that sort of thing. If you're playing the Celestial build, for example, for open world. Well, now, Burst of Strength gives you more condition damage too. 15% more condition damage for 10 seconds, which is great. So that build's now better. Condi Herald also gets buffed in PvP. I don't know why ArenaNet liked Condi Herald. I never thought Condi Herald was a very interactive or enjoyable build to play against. But CMC clearly likes it. He will not stop buffing it until it comes back. So, I mean, watch out for that, I guess. I mean, is it getting there? I mean, I'm also not so sure about that, to be honest. I don't think it really did that much last patch, but you never know. Okay, maybe we're getting there. I've got no idea, guys. Yeah, CMC loves Condi Herald. He's all over it. But yeah, 4.0 power on Carrot Race. What is that? What are we doing, dude? The big stuff of Vindicator in PvP, by the way, Vindicators can't dodge while immobilized. This is actually a huge issue in PvP, so they've fixed it, right? It was broken. Being able to dodge while immobilized is silly. It's almost as silly as being able to dodge while stunned, like Mirage can. And in fact, that will probably be the trade-off, right? Mirage will get its second dodge back, but it won't be able to dodge while immobilized or stunned. That's probably what's going to happen down the line. Maybe they'll let Mirage dodge while immobilized, because it could technically remove the immobilize with its dodge Condi Cleanse trait, but who knows? We'll see. We shall see. For Thief... Oh boy. Oh boy. You know, you might expect this to be a meme, but number one, rifle range reduction actually removed. They're like, you know what? You're all good. You can actually still do it. So you still have big range. If you want to roleplay as a sniper, good news. You still can. Hooray. But here's the thing. Thief DPS is here. Right, this is a melee DPS build, the Dagger build. You go absolute blast mode. This, again, another 40k plus DPS build. If you like stabbing things, if you like pumping, yep, Deadeye is here. And the nice thing is, too, is that because of Rifle, you can actually have a ranged option. You have a ranged option, guys. So if you have to do a mechanic, you don't lose all your damage because you can't backstab. You can just go, boom, right, we're going to rifle it up and go pew, 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 right? For a while. Yeah, it's 45k DPS. It's massive, right? So Dagger, rifle on the offset, off you go, right? Big DPS, big blast. You love to see it, right? And Neil, you know, honestly, I kind of played around with this in game. We can maybe relog over to it now while we're here, actually. I was a little skeptical about this. I think it's not that good in PvP, to be honest, because... I mean, you're so slow, right? I mean, like, it's better than nothing, I guess, right? But you're so slow, right? With this build. I don't think it's really going to help you because you're just going to get chased out and smushed. But honestly, in PvE, this feels really slow, but this is probably going to let you readjust well enough to kind of sidestep mechanics if you play well. And no, super speed, well, it does work a little bit, but it doesn't put you to normal speed, unfortunately. But yeah, this is definitely going to help a little bit. It's going to help you out of touch, for sure, to kind of get away from mechanics, right? So I'll take that. Bit of a weird gimmick here. They probably want to look at this. You actually move faster while backpedaling than walking forwards currently on Neil, which is quite amusing. But that's something. But, you know, it's good for the RP, right? We can do sniper roleplay. Boom, 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 boom. You love to see it. But yeah, you're still pretty slow, even with super speed. But, you know, it's quality of life, right? It certainly helps a little bit there on Thief in general. I think that buffing Dagger is pretty interesting because that build was already pretty good in the right hands, but they're kind of almost like over-buffing it now to be in that super glass cannon spot. And to be fair to it, right? Look, Deadeye should be hot. It should probably be the highest DPS in the game because you have to be really slow. You have to backstab. You're very squishy. You don't really have utility, except some decent CC. You're melee. You don't have cleave, right? If you're going to have a build that does 45k DPS, I mean, yeah, Deadeye is the build that should probably do it. Yeah, that's all I've got to say, really. I think that you might go, oh, why didn't Daredevil get touched here? Well, Daredevil, in my opinion, needs a bit of a rejig, because it's basically balanced around stolen skills in raids right now, which is pretty unhealthy. Realistically, ArenaNet probably need to take some of the power away from the raid stolen skills and then put it back into the build. Because right now we're in this really weird spot where Thief is either just kind of okay or hyper busted because of stolen skills, right? And that's a super weird thing to have to actually design around. I think, from that perspective. The other thing that happened this patch, of course, was Spectre. Spectre, now you can't double tap, which is nice, so you don't instantly leave Shroud. And 33% damage reduction in PvE only. Yeah, and this is really going to help. You know, Spectre obviously suffered a lot when it lost its increased Shroud. And now having 33% damage reduction that will stack with protection, of course, will really, really help out with this. They could even go hard. They could even go harder on this if they wanted to, right? If they wanted to, they could say, okay, we're going to make it 50%. If it turns out this isn't tanky enough, then yeah, they can go 50% to give it a bit more help. Again, in PvE, it's not the end of the world. It's still 0% in PvP, by the way. And funnily enough, you might have expected Spectre to be very dead in PvP. Turns out that's not the case. It was actually played in the monthly automated tournament by Team Barcode, and they actually played very competitively into the finals, into the French team with Spectre using a very high mobility roaming damage composition. So yeah, it's actually not dead in PvP. You know, Daredevil saw play a lot of, you know, even Dead I did, like, you know, all 3 Thief specs did see play in high level PvP. So Thief mains, don't be sad. And also, Thief mains, be happy in PvE because Daredevil, Deadeye, and Spectre are all good. So that's the good news for you. That is the good news. And it just doesn't stop. It just doesn't stop, guys. Because I think one of the most broken builds in the entire game has just been enabled. Oh yes, guys. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And I'm talking about Hammer Spellbreaker. Oh, yeah. This is PvE, of course. I mean, actually, it turns out Spellbreaker is a bizarre Condi build that works really well in PvP right now. But yeah, this is actually probably one of the most insane builds in the game. And it's because of the defense trait line and a few additional reworks there. This build is pretty insane. This Fierce Blow change is going to massively increase the damage of Hammer onto targets, right? Boss targets specifically. And it turns out that this is going to be absolutely monstrous currently with the way this works. There have been some buffs to Spellbreaker recently that have really helped it out with its damage output over time here, which is pretty good, I guess. But the defense trait line has now activated, and you have a monstrous build here. I imagine we're running strength here. Yeah, for Berserker's power. Let's see, what are we running here actually? Maybe extra ferocity, I guess. Doesn't really matter, guys. It doesn't matter. We're blasting either way. We're pumping hard with the defense trait line here, guys. Because now, yeah, you know that 20% damage modifier, guys, on Hammer? Oh, yeah. That applies to bosses now. Oh, yeah. Look, the defense trait line. Guys, defense trait line, by the way. 10% modifier, okay, on Stalwart Strength. 20% modifier on Merciless Hammer. And 10% extra damage modifier on Cull the Weak. Oh, yeah, by the way, you get Prot on your heal skill. And you get 400 health a second from Adrenal Health. And you get 10% damage reduction while you have Resolution on at the same time, which in a lot of strike mission groups is actually going to be a lot, right? Like a squad, you're going to have Resolution a lot. Like other people are going to give it to you, and you're going to apply it to yourself with Hardened Armor at the same time. This build is absolutely crazy, and obviously you're just going full DPS. Ignore my gear here. I've got like some scuffed ass set on right now, okay? It doesn't really matter, but you use Hammer, okay? You break out the Hammer, and oh boy, are you gonna pump on this. And that's, we're not even talking about the CC, guys. Right, you've got some of the most disgusting crowd control in the game. Backbreaker, 4 seconds. What is that? 700 Defiance Break? Is that even correct? I feel like it will only... Wait, does it actually apply both? Wait, is that accurate? No. Whoa. It's 400, right? There's no way. If it was set, that would be so broken if it's 700. But I think it's 400. I think it's just a tool tip. It will only apply the 4-second knockdown with weakness. We've got a knockback here with Staggering Blow. Of course, you have full counter. You have Earthshaker as well. I mean, this build is pretty beast mode at this point. You're going to do great damage. Solid crowd, really good crowd control effects. You can actually, you can take Winds of Disenchantment if you need this. You can very easily take Battle Stand as well to revive allies. You can definitely squeeze some banners here if you want to as well, in addition to like your normal me do extra damage stuff that you're going to be kind of getting onto this build with this stuff. But yeah, you are going to rip through Defiance bars. You're going to be incredibly durable because, again, it's not just the regeneration. You have really good regen, guys. You have a great heal skill with Mending, for example, which is, loads of colonies removed, loads of healing on a very short cooldown. You're going to have access to potential revival. You have damage reduction. You're a heavy armor class with high health. You have full counter as well, and 400 health a second. Dude, this is probably one of the best DPS builds if you just want to get in there and blast and kind of carry in a way by having some really good abilities that you can use and just destroying Defiance bars. Hammer Spellbreaker. Oh, yeah. You love to see it. It is beastly. And Berserker got fixed, so now, good news, right? Berserker means you don't have to do this really awkward thing where you've got to stun yourself and not have stability and then stun break out with Outrage. Now you just have to be near the target, basically, and you just mash it off cooldown. Bit weird gameplay, bit wonky, but it is what it is. It kind of cleans up the gameplay a little bit. And is nice. And yeah, the other thing that really helps with Spellbreaker is that, yep, here we go. On Dagger, guys, more damage. And it's a 50% damage increase to targets with no boons. What is that? Yeah. This is pretty good. This is pretty juicy. And a slight nerf to Spellbreaker and World vs. World. Basically, the internal cooldown and enchantment collapse has gone above 1 second. This means that this is a specific targeted change to Winds of Disenchantment. Winds pulses every 1 second, but now this cooldown, when you remove a boon, it does another AoE boon removal. Okay, well now what's happening is that it will only happen every other tick, right? Because it will be slightly desynchronized by a subtle increase in internal cooldown. Just to, again, target that really powerful, really game-defining elite skill of Spellbreaker and World vs. World. Kind of fun in that regard. So yeah, Warrior, absolutely having an awesome time there. Berserker is going to be definitely super fun. Condi Quickness Berserker, Condi DPS Berserker, Power Spellbreaker, Blade Sworn is amazing. Look, I've just got to kind of say this, guys. This patch has got almost every spec in the game is going to have a really good build. Seriously. Seriously. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Almost every spec in the game, maybe even every spec in the game, is going to have a really good build to play. You know, it really has targeted a lot of the things that were maybe underperforming a little bit and brought them up again a little bit. A huge patch. Really good patch here in terms of balance. Chrono's kind of back on the menu as well, by the way, guys. The DPS Chronomancer build is about the same as Virtuoso. It probably should be more than Virtuoso, because again, it's Virtuoso is broken. So maybe some adjustments down the line. I do think that what's kind of missing here, and this patch is more focused on kind of making DPS builds a lot better, I think, rather than looking at support builds. But I am honestly really excited to see CMC take a pass at supports. Looking at Chrono, making the quickness maybe a little bit cozier on Chronomancer, more convenient, making the protection a bit better, maybe the general boon axis of Chrono a bit better to make it into a full package that it can really do well in groups. Looking at Scrapper, looking at Spectre, right? You know, you get the idea, right? But in general, very, very cool, I think. Changes here. They nerfed Stax Mirage a little bit. This was kind of a build that this is a one change that's targeted at high-end play. It was kind of crazy that Stax Mirage could basically give 25 might and do a zillion DPS and alacrity at the same time. So basically the goal here is that they want to make you have to either commit to using staff clones or using axe clones. So in other words, you could go, okay, well, I'm going to give alacrity, so I'm going to use staff clones, and that's how I get all the alacrity there, and those clones will generate alacrity for me. Or you can say, well, I'm going to go all in on axe clones and do more damage, right? And then, you know, I'm going to generate less alacrity if I use my staff ambush. And that kind of makes sense, right? You know, this broadly makes a lot of sense to me. The approach they're taking here, kind of having like an inbuilt trade-off into the way it works. It's actually pretty elegant design here, I think, from ArenaNet. They'll definitely be keeping an eye on this as well. There are some weird changes. This is actually something that applies to Chronomancer as well. This is one of the reasons why the playability of Chrono is a bit low, is that this is weird because Chrono and Mirage need a target. And not just a target that you can attack to give boons. That is kind of weird. It's kind of, not the end of the world, but it is weird. Because here's the thing. If there's no target, well, you don't have clones. So you can't give alacrity now, or might, right? And it's the same on Chrono. You can't give quickness because your clones are gone, right? And if you can't target it to actually unleash the attack, the clones won't attack, right? Because they can't do anything, right? They don't have a target. And that means that, oh, you can't give a lack. Ugh. That's a bit unfortunate, isn't it? And that is probably rework territory, to be honest. It's kind of hard to fix that. That's like an inherent mechanic. It's a bit weird, but we'll see. In general, really fun. Chronomancer DPS, if you're into that sort of thing, boom, you're back. I think that once we'll get the hang of this, it's going to be a very competitive DPS build if you're into Chrono. And of course, Chrono is Mesmer, so it has utility. You can do Portal, you can do Stability, right? So, yeah, happy days. And Gravwell, super short cooldown as well. So a lot of damage and a lot of really potent crowd control for Chronomancers there as well over just the Mower. Instead, you can pick Mower for a longer cooldown but a very strong burst CC, or Gravity Well with some more damage and some area of effect crowd control on a much shorter cooldown. And with Chronomancer, by the way, your cooldown is ridiculously short. Because bear in mind, you have Giga Alack. That's a 40-second cooldown, really strong crowd control. That is nice, by the way. That's very nice. That's tasty, yeah? So just be aware of that. Chronomancer, definitely back on the menu. I haven't even talked about Firebrand yet. I got excited by all of the really cool builds that got buffed. I guess we'll do. Look, you know what I'm gonna do, guys. You know what I'm gonna do, guys? I'm gonna leave Firebrand to last. Ha 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 ha. Okay. Let's do it. So. I'm going to talk about DH first. Now, as far as I can tell here, DH hasn't got any sneaky buffs. Okay? I don't think it got any extra juice. And I was kind of hoping it would, actually. But I don't think it did. Unlike Reaper. Reaper kind of got juiced up a little bit extra. Looks like DH maybe not so much. Now, there is one thing that I do have to mention in terms of parity. DH is interesting because it does, and always has had, amazing burst damage. Okay? And this does make it a little bit tricky to balance because power builds that have very, very high burst, if you give them like a really high sustained number, their burst gets even higher, right? And then they get completely crazy in certain situations, right? So that is something that ArenaNet are probably cognizant of, and they're trying to keep an eye on. But we do see some buffs here to the auto attack. That's going to be great for sustained damage. The sword auto attack is up. Sword of Justice damage is up. The Binding Blade pulsing damage is up as well from 0.2 to 0.3. Bear in mind, this pulse is 10 times, I believe. That's actually a significant damage increase, by the way, on the just sustained DPS, the DH. And you can kind of see what they're trying to do here. They're trying to increase the sustained damage a bit while not going too crazy on making the burst better, right? In that regard. And it is going to be stronger, right? But you can't really balance around the Virtues build, right? Because the Virtues build probably has a decent number now, probably close to 40k. I think it's 38k. But realistically, can you really balance around a class having Aegis the entire time? I mean, look, honestly, that build probably should do ridiculous damage. Because if you could actually have Aegis the entire, don't get hit the entire fight, not even once, okay? Yeah, you probably deserve to do a lot of damage, you know what I mean? So I think looking at Longbow a bit more in the future is really going to help out. Just improving the damage numbers, the sustained DPS numbers, kind of across the board is going to be the way to go for sure with DH. Again, it's a step in the right direction. Not quite as much of a step as the Reaper changes were. I'd love to see like maybe a few just number tweaks, right? Honestly, you could go full crazy on True Shot and just give it like a 4.0 power scaling. Right, just go full unhinged, right? Like some crazy shit like that, you know? Just increase some of the numbers. Maybe make the sword auto attack a little bit better again, so it's sustained damage, not the burst combo, right? Like, you could even look at Binding Blade. You could actually try and give it damage more in where it's been given damage now, so you don't completely throw the burst out of whack. Because that to me, this looks like they're trying to not make the burst out of control, right? And just completely over the top, right? And because that can be a pretty serious balance issue, right? So we'll see what they do down the line. But yeah, I mean, DH, it's definitely better, right? It's going to be better by a little bit, right? Not a crazy buff, but a buff nonetheless, which is going to be welcome, right? You have more uptime on your F1 tether, so you just have more sustained damage. You have more damage on your auto attacks, on your Binding Blade, and your Sword of Justice. It's going to be good, right? You know, it's definitely playable, 100%, right? Willbender. Yeah, I'm doing Firebrand last. You can't stop me. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. You know, we're doing this. We're doing this, guys. So, when it comes to Willbender, to me, Willbender, it needs to find its identity in PVE. And I think they should just go crazy on the damage. Right? That's what it's got to be. And we see them moving in that direction, right? Lethal tempo. This is, you know, just the damage mod that you have, right? In Willbender, the base is going up from 1 to 2% in PVE. And then if you trait it, if you trait your lethal tempo, right? Awesome. Well, now it's up to 3%. So you actually gain a decent chunk of extra damage here, right? It's an extra 10% DPS modifier, basically. You know, combined with sword auto attack, that's going to help you a little bit too. It's not just, you know, Willbender, of course, uses some of these core skills to do additional DPS. It's not just these changes to Willbender that give it more damage, but I think they can definitely go harder, right? Yeah, don't overlook this one. It's a good point by the chat, actually. Don't overlook this. This is a very strong crowd control ability now. Every 16 seconds with Alacrity, right? We have a 3.0 power scaling AoE ability, I believe. And it's a very strong knockdown, so great for breaking through Defiance bars on bosses on quick succession too. And it's a Shadow Step, which is nice mobility. But I definitely think Willbender needs some love. I would love to see them look at the Alacrity build as well and make it this super aggressive Alacrity build that really pumps a lot of DPS. Whereas I feel like that build, I don't know, does anyone play that? Like, is there one guy at the back there who plays this? I mean, yeah, it definitely needs a little bit of help, I think. Just doesn't really seem to deliver value. And this will always be a problem with Willbender because it is a little bit on the glass cannon-y side, which means it will be inherently less popular than more hybrid-y, durable, tanky builds, right, that have value and deliver value to people, all that kind of stuff. But, I mean, you know, I think it definitely deserves a little bit more. But, again, you know, we're going in the right direction, so happy days, right? I'm totally fine with that. That's what we like to see, right? We want to see that. This is good. This is good. And finally, is there anything else, guys? Are we done? Are we done? Or what? I think this is that was the last one, right? We don't need to. I'm just gonna scroll through here and just kind of have a look. I don't think there's anything else. Just taking a look here, but yeah. Oh, yeah, guys. Scourge got nerfed in World vs. World. Yeah. Oh, I forgot about it. Yeah, guys, look at this. Feed from Corruption. Kind of a broken trait. Purity of purpose, but conditions. Look, check this out. It actually got nerfed in World vs. World. Great change there. You know, one of those things that really keeps Scourge very dominant is ability to self-boon, give it self-stability, self-might, and so on. And that's really getting toned down. I'm taking that from 3 stacks to 1. Protection and Resolution going down from 4 to 2. Regen from 8 to 4. Yeah, I love that change, guys. That's good, you know. I mean, Scourge has been a Scourge on World vs. World since its inception, right? So I do actually love to see this by taking that down a notch. Honestly, I mean, these changes, honestly, CMC, he don't miss, okay? CMC is, you know, he's getting those bullseyes, right? He's a sniper. He's a Deadeye. He's a Deadeye main with that accuracy like this. Honestly, I think what a great patch. It really is a very good patch. So, yeah, okay, fine. We're going to talk about Firebrand. So, here's the gimmick. Here is the gimmick. Check this out. We can now cycle through our tomes whenever we want with a very small internal cooldown. Oh my god. I love it. I love it. To me, this is actually really cool. Because now the class is insanely dynamic. And the nerfs kind of come where they have to. They nerfed the DPS quickness build, but they left Heal Firebrand very much intact. Right, actually. Heal Firebrand is actually probably going to be better, as you can quickly dip into a tome and use your abilities much more frequently, rather than having all of your kind of really strong burst healing locked behind a single long cooldown here. So, Heal Firebrand, still very, very strong. The page regeneration is pretty slow. It is pretty slow, actually. And I could definitely see them tweaking this. I could see them actually just straight up saying base goes to 6 seconds interval, and then Lawmaster goes to 5 or even 4 seconds to really let that support Firebrand blast. That might be a little bit too crazy, actually, but I think that the page regeneration, it is definitely pretty slow right now. And a very interesting thing here is actually the fact that you start off seeing the thief problem a little bit almost on Firebrand, where now, because you can use the skills kind of whenever you want. You only want to use the best one. So realistically, a lot of the time, you're going to be using Scorched Aftermath or Ashes of the Just, right? So if you're in an area of effect situation, you'll use your area of effect burning, Scorched Aftermath, which is a lot more damage now, by the way. Or if you're single target, you're going to use Ashes. Then you're going to drop out and then basically rinse and repeat and regenerate your pages and go again. That's pretty much how things are going to go. But the interesting thing about this is, it means that as long as you manage your pages well, you're actually going to be able to kind of dip into other tomes and use key defensives pretty much whenever you want, which I think is actually really cool. But more importantly, it makes it balanceable. Now, ArenaNet have so many numbers they can play with, rather than just saying, okay, the cooldown's 10 years and the numbers suck. That's what happened in PvP, right? Like, Firebrand got eviscerated, utterly deleted in PvP. Now, I could see it actually coming back in PvP, right, as a support option instead of the Core Guard, which is a lot, by the way, guys, is a lot better. Do you know the biggest problem with Core Guard in PvP? It's uninteractive, because it doesn't have cast times, right? You basically just spam your F abilities and give boons and healing. It's very, and spam shouts. It's very uninteractive. Now, mantras are much better, okay? And of course, you would still use some shouts. But the fact that a lot of the key healing abilities are actually going to have cooldowns, are going to have a degree of interactivity, I think it's actually really important for having a really dynamic, exciting support build, both to play and to play against in PvP and World versus World. This also addresses, or gives ArenaNet a way to address the extreme dominance of Firebrand's stability in World versus World 2. Particularly seeing as you can't just spam the auto attack for stability now. The only stability, in fact, that's guaranteed in Tome 3 is actually on Epilogue Unbroken Lands. That's actually a big nerf, by the way, because being able to kind of spam this skill here to just give a bunch of stability, that was very, very strong. And the fact that you can't do that anymore is actually a really big kind of brain check for players. You're going to have to be very careful with using these abilities and time it quite well to get value out of it, which is exactly how it should be, right? That's exactly how it should end up playing out, right? All that kind of stuff. Right, you love to see it actually, guys. Right, there are things that are a bit expensive. For example, I do think that 3 pages, right, is pretty brutal. And I could 100% seeing ArenaNet, again, adjusting the recharge rate or increasing the base amount of pages. For example, I think it would be pretty reasonable to have the base number of pages 7, right, and then have the trait increased to 10 when you have 3. I think that would be perfectly sensible to have. But in general, I think this makes the spec really dynamic to play and really exciting to play. Like now, for example, if you want to spam reflects, right, for a start, you can't do it anymore, because honestly, you probably shouldn't be able to do that. But you can just use it and then drop out and then, oh shit, look, I can still use my abilities. Because before, if you wanted to chain together reflect, you had to sit there like a lemon doing nothing, right? And then, because if you drop out of the tome, you can't do it anymore. So you have to wait until you're done reflecting. But now you can just drop one down, then leave, do some other shit, even go in another tome, right? And do some attacking maybe, use some aggressive abilities, and then great. When you need to reflect again, you can just go back into the tome and you can use the ability again. Now, cooldown tracking is actually going to be pretty intense here. You're very much like an engineer where you're going to have to kind of have a feeling for your cooldowns and get used to that. And that actually is pretty skill testing, right? Like managing invisible numbers, but you'll get used to that eventually. But yeah, I think this actually makes the class really reactive and exciting to play, while not really making it bad. I think it's actually pretty sensible, to be honest, with the way they've gone about this in terms of the design. I think the design on the traits are pretty fun as well. They were also very careful. We were kind of like, whoa, this is going to be broken. But I am a little bit sad about Quickfire. So basically, Quickfire now, if you give quickness, you gain a burn stack, but it's only on you. It doesn't give ashes to your allies when you share quickness, and I'm like, oh. I mean, that probably would have been a bit over the top, but honestly, with the Herald changes, maybe not. Especially as they actually buffed Mantra of Flame to the kind of DPS ability. 24-second burn now, right, on a 12-second cooldown, essentially. So this is a pretty strong DPS ability. Again, not bursty too. They made it unbursty, right, by only making it 1 stack, but a very long stack. All that kind of stuff. Right, so yeah, that's actually pretty cool. They thought of everything. They thought of everything when it comes to Firebrand. But you know, the big thing here, to be honest, I would really say, wait for this to be refined. Like right now, I would say this is probably, compared to Herald, actually a bit undertuned, especially as Herald got buffed pretty significantly over the past few patches. This is probably actually a little undertuned in terms of the amount of base pages you have. Maybe the regeneration rate could go down by a second as well. Some of the costs in PvE could be adjusted, maybe in PvP as well. But in my opinion, we've got to see the big picture. Like, nailing a rework perfectly first try is almost impossible. There's so many variables and so many things changing at the same time. It's incredibly difficult to do that. This is going to need a bit of refinement, another patch down the line to actually juice that a little bit. But yeah, there you go. Yeah, exactly. The book has only got 5 pages. It's a very short book right now. Maybe you could extend the duration of the book. But yeah, some really exciting things, in my opinion, here for Firebrand, and I honestly can't wait to see what the adjustments are going to be down the line, right? Yes, very nice. Very, very nice indeed. And yes, guys, Heal Firebrand is still alive. I think a lot of people were really worried about Heal Firebrand in particular, but in my opinion, Heal Firebrand is actually going to be better here. As all of a sudden, because on Heal Firebrand, obviously, you don't really want to spam all of your offensive abilities anyway. And you also take Lawmaster on this build, so you get the reduced page recharge anyway. You get more pages, like, across the bat. And this means that now, instead of having to waste all of your tome abilities all in one go, you can just go ahead and drop down some of these heal skills, drop out, and look, we still actually have healing left over, right? Nice. That's not too bad. And that means we can go into our other defensive tome, maybe use one ability here, and then drop out again. And all of a sudden, we still have stuff left in the tank. Whereas the major weakness of Firebrand previously, on Heal Firebrand anyway, was that it would just run out of steam, right? Because you don't have your cooldowns all the time. You just run out of juice. Whereas this time, with careful management, actually, you can actually be very, very careful with your abilities here and get a lot of value out of Tome 2 and Tome 3 while still dipping in here for some crowd control, for example, by pulling enemies together or something of that nature. Which is pretty cool, actually. And yeah, if you end up taking stuff like Legendary Lore and you go in this direction, then you can actually even use your tome to apply regen and boons. You can apply protection and apply regeneration, which actually really frees up your utility skill choice and weapon skill choice as well, which is pretty hype. And I also think the Selly build, I think the Selly build is fine. It was the build I was maybe the most worried for, actually, to be honest. But I think the Selly build survives fine too. Frugal Fighter can keep playing the same build for all time on my alt account, actually. So I think it's pretty good. I think it is pretty damn good, in fact. So yeah, that's it. You love to see it. Oh yeah, no, I don't think you need to. I don't, the build that I would think about is going to be Archivist of Whispers on Heal Firebrand. So you would just run, you'd run stuff like this and just give boons in this direction instead. Yeah. Yeah. Pretty solid. But yeah, look, I'll throw Guardian Mains a bit of a bone here. I think that in PvE, maybe a little on the undertuned side. And could take a little juice. Not a lot, but a little. And again, I really would give it a chance, guys, right? Give it a chance. And let it play out. Get used to it. Give feedback. And let's make the game healthier, right? Like, Firebrand has been a really big thorn in the side of ArenaNet for years now. And this is, in my opinion, a pretty elegant way to fix it eventually. Like, this can be balanced, in my opinion. I think it can be done. That's the important thing. Oh, yeah. It's still good. It's still good. And I do like the no cooldown. I did not expect that. I did not expect the no cooldown change. It was spicy. It was spicy. It really was. Really was. But yeah, that's kind of my take on the balance patch. I will actually do, stay tuned for this, gamers. In 2 weeks' time, I'm going to watch some daily ATs. I'm going to play a lot of PvE, play some World vs. World. I will actually give my review of the patch down the line, right? And I will kind of say, oh yeah, this build popped up. This build didn't pop up, and oh no, it didn't pop up, this is why, right? And kind of give a bit of analysis on that kind of 2 weeks online so we can actually get a review and kind of figure out what the hell's going on with it. But that's my initial impressions with that one. It is pretty damn good. This patch is pretty hype. Now, the only criticism here is there is some power creep here. You've got to watch out with that. I think CMC needs to be careful here with power creep in the game too much. This does raise the ceiling a lot in terms of how powerful you can be. And you've got to watch out for that. You do. But overall, I think this should make players really happy. So many builds are getting juiced incredibly hard in all game modes, right? Ellie is back on the menu. Earthshield is no longer going to make PvP fun. Okay, yeah, I love fighting an Ellie that goes invuln every 30 seconds. It's really enjoyable to play against, you know? I love that. Yeah, there aren't really a lot of major complaints here. It's definitely a really good start. And some great bonus quality of life at the same time. Wow. What a patch, guys. What a patch. You love to see it. It really is. Again, bear in mind, guys, this is a pretty short notice patch. CMC is going to have a full 3 months to juice up the next one, and I imagine we'll certainly see him take a swing at looking at supports and making sure that they work correctly, while also really hitting on some of the key issues in PvP and World vs. World that continue to blight those game modes. But yeah, a lot of that is actually getting addressed here as well. I mean, look, I've got to say, guys, I give this patch a very high rating so far. I really, really do. It feels damn good, guys. Feels damn juicy. You love to see it. But anyway, I want you guys to tell me what you think as well. If you're on YouTube right now, which you probably will be, then leave a comment, follow, subscribe. You guys know the drill, all that kind of stuff. Get over there right now. But yeah, let me know what you think. Let's give some feedback here. You should join my Discord too. When this gets uploaded to YouTube, I'll probably make a thread or something, or just post it on the Discord and get people to discuss it. I want to turn my Discord into the Guild Wars 2 debate channel, where we can talk about various things, right? And talk about topics, and it doesn't get completely unhinged like the forums, right? You know, it's going to be very calm, very relaxed. Okay, Nike's going to be there. It's going to be content, guys. It's going to be great. But anyway, that's that. Hope you guys enjoyed my thoughts, and stay tuned for the analysis down the line, and probably some tier lists as well. Oh yeah, tier lists. Yes, very good. You love to see it. That's it. Boom.